who said the book was dead. If the tremendous support that this new festival has had is any indication, then the book is certainly well and truly alive on the beautiful mid-north coast of New South Wales.
Or you could go to that one.
When I came to a really articulate, active community in this beautiful part of the world in the Bellingen Valley, and I wanted to give the people a taste of that, and to bring writers here and to bring them to talk and share their ideas with the general community, because that's where books start, with ideas. And once the community hears them and sees these writers, it will be great for literacy and for reading and for the community as a whole.
Welcome to Bella and its dairy herds, hard-working loggers and computer nerds.
You CEOs of rape and pillage and game, you overpaid entertainers, you bankers, you inbred elite.
In this institution, blame the Constitution, but what exactly does it constitute? 17th century Iranian poetry set to modern Persian rock, hip-hop, indie-pop, bebop, it's all over the shop, and the shop's on fire!
We're going to hear these brilliant voices read, and then we're going to have a general conversation about ideas and inspiration.
I used to tell people I was a foster child. As a boy, I'd tell every new stranger until it started burrowing into me as a sort of truth.
The best things about Writers' Festivals is it blurs the boundary between writers and fiction and literature and readers, and both get to share stories, both get to interact with each other, and it's an amazing setting to come to Bellingen for a Writers' Festival.
Well, it depends when you come to a book as well, something you kind of love, and you sort of alluded to it, that thing of something you read when you're 16, you read it when you're 30 and you kind of go, what was I thinking?
Well, I think for writers, not only myself, but other people I've heard speaking about it, the openness in actually meeting other readers rather than just hanging out with writers all the time. I think that's sometimes a thing that doesn't get enough attention in Writers' Festivals.
This kind of belief in invisible forces, presences, and what we would describe as magical kind of lateral movements in ordinary life was completely real for him and his family and his culture.
I jumped at the chance to come to Bellingen because often these little places like Bellingen really have the fresh excitement about them, where the readers and the people you meet are genuine readers with real kind of passion and love for books. They're not necessarily industry people or anything like that.
I just had the idea of mum and dad and kids, and I thought I'd have and make them as weird as I could, and then I thought I'd just have one that looked really normal like.
The artist's heart is a sigh. The artist's heart is a back corner of the room.
It is I who stir up the sea, which sounds like complete nonsense to me, and he had a special word for swimming in the relationship of the human to the water. He called it the Swinburne.
I think we're losing touch with the natural world and processes. We've got the environmental crisis, and I'm not ashamed to use poetry as a tool, even what you might call a didactic tool, to inform people and to get in touch with their surroundings.
Ever higher, ever further, ever smaller.
In the far, sad corner of the empire.
I'd like to welcome you to the inaugural literary lunch at the inaugural Bellingen Readers and Writers Festival.
Thank you so much, Jose, for that. Thank you for all coming out. It's an enormous pleasure to be here. I know you have to have 3 generations buried in the local cemetery to be regarded as local, but I have got the local connection here.
It's got that wonderful mix of the sort of the culture, the conservative, the rustic, the hippie, creative. If ever there was a town that deserved a Writers' Festival, it was this one.
I actually have a lot of trouble with characters' names, and I find it quite a nuisance. And I thought at one stage, look, this is your main character. You've got to find a name for her.
Just walking around the town, talking to people in shops and cafes, how committed the community is to writing and to reading, and how strong the reading culture is. And as a writer, the best thing is to connect with your readers.
A Writers' Festival hasn't got the
pizzazz of a music festival, but it's a wonderful opportunity to sit and take in all kinds of wisdom and learning and experience that other people are offering.
Yeah, Jack was very influential. I didn't even know Jack was a writer then, Cameron. I had no idea. I learned pretty quickly that I was dealing with a man who had an opinion about everything. Most of them worth listening to, even if you didn't agree. And those are the sort of friends that we became.
So I would write so many pages a day, whether it took me all day or whether I did it in 2 hours, because TV is all about pressure, and you've got to meet your deadlines, and if you don't meet your deadlines, then you get fired.
I would say that it is quite important to reclaim women for history and to not let women just fall by the wayside. And this young woman mattered to me.
It's actually been really good for me to listen and to meet some of the local writers, because I've made some great connections, and I'm sure I'll keep them up and it'll enrich everybody's writing.
That for me is the most important thing. Whatever truths and whatever rules I set up in that world, then I have to stick to that rule. Or I go back and rewrite it and change the rules of that world.
Also the artistic director for this event, John Bennett, from his sick bay.
Okay, so you've all got the quiz sheet in front of you and a pen, I hope. But the first question. Now we all know where Peter Carey was born. Peter Carey, our patron.
Burnham's declaration and police interrogation, police investigations, police deaths in custody, policing the borders of this new state. Welcome, welcome to Australia, mate. Walk the land with the spirits of its race, and as it tells its stories and as it sings its songs, it will know it's dreaming in the place where it belongs. It will know it's dreaming in the place where it belongs.
So I decided to write a poem about everything that happened around trains from when I was young. This one's called Trains. Yeah, I know. Trains. We threw water bombs from the front carriage onto kids like us walking by the tracks, step by step to school. We stood on verandas, armed with slingshots.
The piece I'm going to play for you came out of a really magical moment when I was travelling, and there's an interesting story that goes with it.
So it's hard to believe that we're at the end of the first year, but we are definitely are able to bring the riders back, a lot of the riders back next year, and we'll have a whole new program, and hopefully it'll go strength from strength, and you'll come back and enjoy Bellingen again. So I personally thank you all for coming, and thank you riders and panelists and chairs and everyone who contributed to making this initial event such a success. Thank you.